Hello and welcome to Tales from the Comic Shop. I'm Joe, and this is the fan-led show that gives you the retailer perspective. And in this episode with me, I am the fan, and I'm joined by Eddie D'Angelini and Roger Prouse, our retailers. Why don't you guys tell them your credentials?
All right. Roger, you want me to go first?
Sure, man.
All right. Yeah.
So I've been a comic retailer now for 7 years. With the Nerd Store in Salt Lake City, Utah. We also run Wasatch Comic Con. We're in our third year of that, so I also run a comic show that's a creator and comic focused comic book show.
All right. And I'm Eddie D'Angelini. I manage and co-own Heidi Ho Comics. I'm also the creator, writer, artist of the comic strip Collectors. And I've also had the pleasure of being on Robert Kirkman's Secret History of Comic Books and also the comic book researcher for the movie True Believer, the Stan Lee documentary.
All right, so since we are in a state of social distancing and everything is shut down, we can't really just get around the COVID issue. So, COVID has changed industries in all facets of our society. How has it affected you guys?
Go ahead, Roger. I'll let you go first.
Okay. Well, so being in Utah, we got a bit of a double whammy because about a week before the COVID shutdown hit us, we had an earthquake. And for me, because my shop is in a mall, there was a gas line in that mall that broke, and that shut us down from that. So we've actually been shut down for a week longer than our competition in our area was, and longer than the rest of the area. But we're taking advantage of the time. We're working on a big store remodel and doing some expansion work that we are wanting to do, and so we're going to be fine. But it's definitely an adapt or die world right now for sure.
Yeah, and you also during this downtime, you've switched over to Comic Hub.
Yeah.
So I hear.
We switched our point of sale system. Which for anyone who's not a retailer does not understand just how big of an endeavor that is. But it's
huge.
It's switching a comics point of sale system on an already well-established comic book store is probably more work than opening a brand new store.
Especially when it comes to Comic Hub, because it's not just a POS system, but it's also a marketing email system. It's an inventory system. It's an online retailing sales system. It's everything. Yeah.
So how is that going to affect your customers and their interactions with your
the thing we're most excited about is it's going to allow us to have a web store, a fully interactive web store with up-to-date inventory so that we can keep that going. Our customers are also going to be able to manage their holds online on an app that they can download so they can add and remove hold pre-orders, all that kind of stuff.
That is awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's very cool. There's a reason we're doing it. It's going to be a great product for us to give to our customers. It's going to be a really nice thing to have from a marketing standpoint. It's just a big steep process.
Okay, and Eddie, Heidi Ho is making that switch too?
I'm sorry, Heidi Ho is what?
Is Heidi Ho making that switch too?
Oh, see, that's the thing. We switched to Comic Hub about a little over a year ago.
Okay.
So, Roger, you and your brother Charles, you're in for a real treat because what I tell people is Comic Hub is a great system. As much as it is great and helpful, it's equally as frustrating because it's so huge and it's so tech heavy. If you're not like real computer savvy, it can be very frustrating and just a big endeavor to work through. So it's got a big learning curve. And even after a year, I'm still trying to figure things out. But it literally is a system that if you are not a computer techie kind of person, it takes a long time to get through. It really does.
Okay, and then how has COVID impacted Heidi Ho? What are you guys doing in this
Well,
downtime?
we are completely closed as of March 19th. And here in California, they have um, said that employees of any business like ours, of any non essential business, are not allowed to go in to work at all. Um, Owners, however, are. So my wife and I have been going in on a fairly regular basis to do as much mail order as we can. We have an eBay store. We have a TCG store for our magic stuff. We have been contacting our pull customers on a fairly regular basis. That Last week that we received new books from Diamond was actually the first week that we were closed. So we literally went down the list and called all of our pull customers one by one by one and let them know, hey, we've got your books here. We'll take your payment by phone, or we'll send you an online invoice that you can pay, and we will ship your books out to you. You can come and curbside pick up. We actually did really well that Wednesday. And then that was it for any new material. So now we're pretty much mining anything else that we have in the store that we can get online, or that we can market to our customers. And um, while we're working twice as hard for a very small fraction of what we used to make, I got to say our customers are really great. Our regulars have been contacting us on a very frequent basis, saying, "Hey, do you guys have this? Do you have that? I want to buy this. I want to buy that. Send me an invoice. I want to buy a gift certificate on top of that." So they've been really good about supporting us. The thing about that is, while that is great, it just does not make up for the amount of walk-in business that you need to keep your business going, unfortunately. But we are doing the best that we can.
You
What
get some
about you,
pretty
Roger? Are you guys
Eddie gets some
Yeah.
pretty high profile regulars coming in too.
Oh, yeah, we
His
do.
that's
Yeah,
one
we
of your
do.
big benefits where you're at. You get some people coming in your store that's a lot more high profile than the people we get.
Yeah, well, being our stores in Santa Monica, and being in the west side of LA, obviously there's a lot of celebrities that come in from time to time. There are several film and TV production offices that are right, like literally within walking distance. Michael Bay's big office and is like just around the corner from us. J.J. Abrams' office is right near us, and he'll come in from time to time.
Problem is you can't
Um,
look at it because the sun flare comes off of it and it just blinds you every time you drive.
it's always great when like a celebrity you like walks in. A couple of times, um, Frank Grillo has come in with his kid, and he's like, if I can, be perfectly honest, he definitely is my man crush. um, he's the guy who we're pretty much about. I think he and I are about the same age, early 50s, and the guy is in great shape. So I look up to him as like my fitness role model. And there was a day, I think about a year or so ago, where I was thinking, man, this shop has really just been taking a toll on my health. I need to get back into the gym. I need to get back into shape, because I was always really into fitness and eating right and lifting weights and everything. And it just kind of fell to the wayside when I got the shop. And I thought to myself one day, I was thinking, okay, well, you know what? This is the day. Today is my day. Um, Starting today, I'm going to start going back to the gym. I'm going to start eating right. I'm going to do everything the way I used to do. And, as a sign, almost as like a sign from the heavens, I was telling myself that too, that Frank Grillo is my goal. Frank Grillo is my goal. That was the day I'm going to start. Frank Grillo is my goal. And that day he walked into the shop, and I was like, oh my God, this is a sign from the heavens. I better get my ass into shape. So yeah, it's kind of a deal where, I mean, we had like a number, and like if you go on my Facebook page, or the shop's Facebook page, you'll see pictures of me with like various celebrities that come in, and for the most part, they're all really cool. And I'm like, hey, can I get a picture? And they're like, yeah, no problem. So yeah, definitely
Yeah,
get some high.
even Leo DiCaprio gave you guys a shout out on a podcast not too terribly long ago, I believe.
Yeah, in fact, the history of that is Leonardo DiCaprio's dad. First off, my shop, Heidi Ho Comics, has been around for over 40 years. And Leonardo DiCaprio's dad was a big distributor of underground comic books back in the 80s.
I did not know that.
And yeah, he was. And he was good friends with the original owner of my shop, Bob Hennessy. And so Leonardo DiCaprio's dad used to come in like, a couple times a month and, sell underground comics to the original owner. And he used to drag Leo with him into the shop all the time. So Leo, in a recent podcast, was telling the story about when he was a kid, how his dad would drag him to the different comic shops in LA, like Golden Apple, Heidi Ho Comics, and I forget what else he might have mentioned, but that he just grew up there practically.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. Anyway,
So all right, you guys got a free history lesson today. So let's hop into some news. The big two things that happened today is it was announced that San Diego Comic-Con 2020 is shut down. Correct? Am I correct with that? It's not moved. It's shut down.
No, it's full cancel.
Yep.
Okay, so it is not going to happen. It's not going to be one of those things like Emerald City. I know they're still saying that they're going to have one in the fall.
Yeah, we'll
if
see.
they can. Yeah, but SDCC is just
they're not even. Yeah, SDCC is not even trying. They're just done.
No, in fact, they had said to any of the creators or retailers that have spaces or booths that they will be pushed to 2021. So there is no chance of it happening in 2020 at all.
I also read, I don't know that this is true, so don't come back at me. I saw this on social media. Tickets will be honored from 2020 in 2021 is what I was read.
That's what I've heard as well, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go through the normal ticket portal. As retailers, we get our tickets guaranteed. So
yeah, I get mine as a creator, so I never pay attention to the news about the lowly people who have to get their tickets. I don't.
Well, they're not lowly; they're lovely. But yes. So moving on to more pertinent stuff that is really, really burning up the social media groups in news. Two new distributors have appeared to fill the void for DC that Diamond has left by being shut down, and they are named Lunar and UCS. And Roger, can you expand on their connection to Midtown and DCBS?
Yeah, so one of the problems that people have with this whole thing is the fact that their connection was not presented. It was not put forward. It was very much hidden. One of the more prominent national retailers did some kind of investigative work looking into public record and found that there was the ownership of these new distributors was similar to either high-ranking employees or owners within those other companies, made the connection that it was effectively the same ownership. And then once that was announced, I mean, people were kind of iffy on it. I'm not going to say it. People are kind of waiting to see until that was announced. Once that got announced, though, the retailer reaction was pretty severe, pretty fiercely opposed at that point.
And Eddie, can you tell us why that's a problem?
Well, it's definitely a conflict of interest. Excuse me, I just put a piece of cheese in my mouth. It's definitely a conflict of interest. I liken it to what I've been saying all day. I liken it to the fox guarding the hen house. You've got the two biggest retailers, every mom and pop comic shop's biggest competitor being the ones who are now responsible for distributing to all of these shops. And now we small shops are now having to give our information in our order numbers to these retailers for them to possibly use to their benefit. It's literally like if you tell Target that they have to get their inventory from Walmart. Well, you can damn well be sure that Walmart is going to make sure that all of their shelves are fully stocked before they're going to make anything else available to any of the smaller shops underneath them.
And
That's my biggest problem.
And if they find a Target that's performing particularly well, they may just open up a Walmart across the street.
Yeah. And put that Target out of business.
That is a scary proposition for the local mom and pop shops, I am sure, and I can understand why they are upset.
Sure.
I think
Roger, can you expand on potential for problems?
Roger has much more. Roger has much more to get into on this for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely more to it. I mean, that's kind of the surface level stuff, and kind of, in my opinion, that's kind of the obvious problem with this. The other problems are, so first off, data is a big deal. Knowing our customer base, knowing what our distribution numbers are, knowing what titles sell where, especially when you're dealing with somebody like these two that have very significant online presence, it would be very easy for them with no increase of overhead at all to directly reach out to my customer base, knowing that if they see, okay, well, in Utah, we've really been underperforming compared to what the retail is because, we're going to shift our marketing focus into this market a little heavier. And so that's directly affecting us. The other big thing is, I think the biggest thing that people don't understand if you're not a retailer or at least some level of a business person is so much of what ends up happening from the dollar and cent standpoint of a shop. And it does end up affecting the end consumer in ways that they don't understand or see, happens in meeting rooms and in emails. It happens when we're contacting publishers and we're working out things with them. And we're, sometimes individually, sometimes collectively. There's a group called Comics Pro, which is effectively a trade representation group among comic retailers. And they'll get together and we'll have unified voices on our opinions of certain things to try and sway to go certain directions. What this does is this makes those retailers who are already huge retailers and already have significant power and sway over the publishers, their decision making. It gives them further sway and further contact with other people higher up in the decision making process and regular contact with them to where they can create these really in-depth interpersonal relationships and really sway potentially their decision making, their thought processes, and their policies in ways that will vastly improve online comic stores. And necessarily, if you improve online comic stores, you are hurting retail comic stores. And so I think a lot of people undervalue, and a lot of people don't, but the feeling of going into a comic shop, the ability to talk to the person at the comic shop, the community, those types of things, this has a real chance to threaten all of that, in my opinion, as far as, so it's not really just, it's all for real short-term gain as well. We're only talking a couple more weeks delay until Diamond is saying, hey, we're going to have these same titles out to you in just a few other weeks if you just wait. And so it makes no sense to me from a business standpoint why DC would do this unless they are doing this in order to actively test market a system that circumvents comic shops and treats comic shops as a secondary distribution chain.
Yeah. And basically what you're saying, if I got it right, is that you're letting both Midtown and DCBS control the narrative of where this side of the business is going.
The entire industry. They now have two companies that have more of a sway, more of an ear, and more of a influence than potentially several hundred, even well into the thousands individual comic stores that don't have the same voice as one of those individual people.
So while all these people, retailers and other people complaining about the monopoly of Diamond, you're literally watching what could be pretty much a monopoly of retailers.
Yeah, you're looking at a retail and distribution monopoly. You're replacing a monopoly with a much bigger monopoly, and that's not
right.
That is absolutely not a solution.
Right.
So what really drove this home for me when you guys were explaining this to me earlier, what the problem is to say, and this is putting it fairly, they're Amazoning the comic book industry is what they're really attempting to do here.
Yeah, Amazon started as a bookseller. They were pretty much purely a bookseller, and they took over that entire industry doing these same types of things.
Absolutely. And again, yeah, I completely agree with you, Roger. I mean, for me as a fan, like I've discovered so many artists and writers that I will follow for as long as they continue to to make art by just going in and talking to the people behind the desk or behind the counter at my local comic shop, and also connecting with other members of the comic community through my LCS. And I'm active in Facebook groups. I'm active on Twitter. I'm active on Instagram. But it's not a replacement for that sense of community that you get. And I don't personally enjoy crowds, so a con isn't even a realistic replacement for me. And I mean, the cons at this point are so expensive for your average fan. How can you can't expect them to go to one every month. Not not realistically for your typical fan. I
Not for most
mean,
people, for sure. Well, and it becomes
so
harder and harder at any cons to really get into the comic material, anyhow.
I think exactly. I think this represents a legitimate threat to the community, the comic book community as a community.
It does, and I want to bring this point up. If you have those two distributors now being the main source of print comics, not just as the distributors, but also as um, the retailers where people are going to get their stuff, and they're pretty much putting all the small shops out of business. That's only going to make a smaller. It's going to make that niche market of comics even a smaller niche. I don't have a problem with more and more shops existing and being more and more of a competition because I live in a big city, Los Angeles, where we have several comic shops, and I don't see them as my competition. I see them as my um, my brothers in arms, because the more comic shops there are means that the more exposure comics have to the public, meaning that more people will actually buy stuff, as opposed to one comic shop putting all the others out of business, and now you can only go to one place to buy comics, and that maybe that owner is thinking, haha, now I'm the winner, I'm the one who's going to get all the money because now I'm the only comic shop left. Well, you know what, that's not going to be the case. You're going to have more people stop reading and stop collecting comics, as opposed to having more and more coverage throughout the city of more shops and having it more prevalent to where more people will start picking it up. I
The
see
way
that happening if they're going to put the shops, more and more shops, out of business by their practice of offering deep discounts and have everyone just going through them, and the shop is becoming obsolete and everything just moves to just online. Am I wrong?
No, I agree entirely. I
No,
think the way I like to tell people is I'm fine with having a smaller piece of a bigger pie.
Yeah.
So I don't and it will affect the ability for new people to get into this hobby. One of the things that Eddie and I's shop have in common, in different ways and to different levels, but we're in very high traffic, high profile areas for the general public. And I've talked with Eddie a little bit about this, but I know for my shop, I would say close to 50% of the whole traffic that we get bought their first comic book in my store. Many of these people were well into their early to mid 20s before ever picking up a comic book, that are now regular comic book monthly subscribers and readers. And not only is that good for the publishers, obviously, but it's good for the artists, it's good for the writers, and it's good for the community on a whole, because you don't want to be the guy that has the weird hobby that nobody likes. We've seen that, where you're the only person who's into what you're into. One of the things that makes comic books so good right now in the public is that it has, contrary to what you'll hear on, doom and gloom YouTube channels, the comic book community is as big as it's been, since, as far as the actual community, if you take out people who are just doing it for speculation and money, but I think it's probably the biggest it's been since the 90s, and possibly even bigger.
Agreed.
yeah,
And the
no,
way you keep that going is by having more coverage and more shops and more availability of product to the public.
Yes.
and I definitely, there's that small toxic part of the community that is the squeaky wheel, is very loud. They seem obsessed with making it seem like LCSs are failing left and right, and the industry's doomed. But they've been making that song and dance for 10 years now through YouTube and other social media. I
And
mean,
it's
Roger, didn't you tell me that at Comic Pros they said that more retailers opened in 2019 than closed?
yes, yeah, and the overall, yeah, we had more. They had more new accounts opened than they had accounts closed, and the overall sales had increased. The other big, narrative you keep hearing is how digital is going to take over, and digital is such a great threat. But digital hasn't increased market share in 7 years, since 2013. It hit 5%,
Yeah,
it capped at 5%, and it has not gone higher. And
Yeah,
I,
I
yeah.
mean,
I've read up on this as well. Is that digital has pretty much leveled off and has stayed there for quite some time. And in fact, that people were saying that digital is going to take money away from the print side of comics, when research has actually shown that it's doing the opposite.
yep,
People are going to digital to try things out before they go into the comic shop to buy what they liked.
yep, or they'll
So it's
find something
bringing
that's,
people in.
yes, absolutely, I
and
agree entirely.
another great sign that I heard come out of Comics Pro was that YA is the fastest growing segment,
Yeah, by far,
if I'm correct.
by
Oh
And
yeah,
how could that be anything but great news? Because while I'm a superhero guy, I'm always going to be, move towards superhero and indie books, like especially horror and anything funny. I still would love to see young people coming into shops and buying books. And even if they're not coming into shops, reading books, because that means that in 25, 30 years, we're still going to have comics.
Well,
oh
I
yeah.
think that's a great point for the discussion we're having too, because I think, and again, Eddie, I think we talked about this a little bit, but I'm of the opinion that the superhero market is relatively maxed out. We have saturated that market about as much as we're going to. You're not going to see
Right,
great.
because you're not getting new people in. You're just maintaining the people who are buying that stuff already month to month.
The only thing you're bringing back in is enough to compensate for the people that are dropping off, because everyone knows superhero in comics are already so synonymous that if people want superheroes, they go to comics. But what we're seeing big increases and what we have huge potential for increases in is things like nonfiction and horror and young adult, non-superhero young adult. I mean, there's romance in a lot of the young adult categories, especially. So, sci-fi comics. These are the things that we have great opportunity as an industry to increase. And these are where the increases are happening. And
Right.
by doing this, if we consolidate down into individuals, the only people we're going to be selling comics to are the people who seek out comics, which by and large are people looking for superhero. And that ultimately not only negatively impacts, the non-superhero books, but ultimately it will negatively impact the superhero books. Because I'm telling you right now, if we were living in that world, Donny Cates would not be writing for Marvel right now.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point.
Yeah, but if you are a comic shop and you don't have a young adult section, you're doing yourself a big disservice, because the industry is Raina Telgemeier, Captain Underpants, and Dogman, and you've got to cater to that.
Yep. And so, I think for the general consumer, though, they need to understand that there's a bit of a farm league, right? Josh Williamson, Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman, like there's great creators that people know now that they know of as great creators. The reason they are great high profile creators is because they were able to start little books with Dark Horse or Image or IDW or all these other different publishers that put them on the map. It almost acts like a farm league for the superhero books. And if you want the great talent to rise to the top, I'm telling you, I've dealt with the people at Marvel and DC. They're not really all that good at talent scouting if they don't have someone shoving it in their face. They're not going to be the ones who are on the artist alley looking at every up and comer like the little guys do. They're too big. They don't have the wherewithal. They use the little guys as their talent scouts. So even if you're sitting here saying, well, I don't care, I only read superhero, I don't really care if I go to my local comic shop. My comic shop sucks anyways, whatever. I hear it a lot, all those different things. And sure, it's valid if you only care about how this affects your situation. You got to understand that this will hurt the ultimate quality of superhero books down the line.
That's a great point, Roger.
Yep.
We were on a positive note, and I kind of wanted to keep it there, but still, that's very solid information. So let's try and end this on a positive note. What do you guys see as an alternative way to go? Like, what are your options here? Are retailers going to have to strike, revolt? I don't even know what you do when. I mean, they've only had one distributor for so long at this point through Diamond. what options do you have to stop this from happening, or is it even possible?
I think that's
Ooh.
what we're all asking ourselves today, isn't it, Eddie?
Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's happened, what we talked about, it literally has just happened today. I mean, the timeline right now, as of April 17th, was, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, yesterday morning, we got an email from Diamond saying that they have plans to reopen mid to late May. And then it was this morning where we got the email from Diamond saying, no, we're going to start shipping out books the end of this month, end of April, and we're going to start doing it through these two new distributors, which you know nothing about, but
Sorry,
we
from
all
DC,
figured out
not
who it
from Diamond,
was.
from DC. Correct you.
What did I say? Oh,
You
I
said
said, oh, I'm sorry, DC. I misspoke. Yeah, I meant DC, not Diamond. We got the email this morning from
yeah.
DC. Sorry.
I can tell you what's been done so far is a lot of angry emails have been sent. A lot of tagging their reps in Facebook posts, and the reps ignoring them have been done at this point.
Yes.
There's been a lot of that.
There has not been one retailer that I've heard from, and I can sure you can agree as well, Roger, that has said that they're happy about this, because we were given, from the email we got this morning, we were given 72 hours to sign up with one of these two distributors to make sure that you start getting these books from DC by next week, over the next 3 weeks. And I cannot imagine that 72 hours is enough time to start up a whole new distribution service, get all these stores signed up, and get everything up and running in a manageable way that will result in these shops getting books into their shop on the date that they're saying, let alone the fact that most of these shops are still closed. I can't imagine that 72 hours is enough time to get
I
this
mean,
whole mechanism up and
Well,
running.
unfortunately, this also really disproportionately harms the shops in places like LA and in New York, that they are closed, and they are closed for longer than the rest of the country. And it's like, okay, great. Now we have distribution for books we can't even sell. Our whole customers are going to end up missing out because of this. We're going to miss out because of this, when really, I mean, I think putting the industry on pause, I don't understand why that was. I know there's some pain there, and I do sympathize with the people going through that. But we've been really resourceful, really good at finding ways around that. Retailers have been really busting their butts to find their ways around having it on pause. I don't understand why that wasn't working as the best option at this point.
Well, I'm on the fence here. I totally agree with everything you just said, Roger. But at the same time, if Diamond said, "Well, we're going to go ahead and start sending you new books right away this coming week, this coming Wednesday," I will find a way to sell them, like I did that week when we were closed, when we got the last week of books shipped to us. We literally just got on the phone that Wednesday, as soon as we got in, and started calling every single one of our pull customers and started selling them their books over the phone, telling them, you can't come in, but we got your stuff. And there's ways, when they say there's no way for us to sell them because we're closed, that's not entirely true. But it is a hardship. It is 3 times the work, which I hate being put in that situation. Yeah, and I hate being put in that situation. But the truth is, if we don't have that, I don't have anything to sell.
Sure.
Which isn't entirely true, because I'm literally trying to put everything and anything we have in the shop up online, up on social media, anything that's not nailed down.
Yeah,
but it's harder.
It depends on what kind of shop you run too. If you're a real new shop, heavy shop, it's a lot harder to say the statement I just made. If you've got a pretty strong back issue catalog, then it's maybe not quite as hard for them too. So,
sure. I mean, I've been kind of partially existing on our eBay store, where we have like a lot of our gold, silver, and bronze age stuff, but that still, unfortunately, is just not enough. We don't have that push of every Wednesday new books. And it was a lot of work doing it when we were closed to sell those things, but I was willing to do it. I was willing to say, yeah, I'll do this every week. Me and my wife will come in and we'll start calling everybody down the list, for 8 hours to sell this stuff. I was ready to do it. But I understand why they closed down, but that literally took away a source of revenue for me in a period where I just can't have anybody coming in. I have no walk-in business.
Yeah.
So that is a bit of a hardship.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, what we will do is we will keep you guys updated going forward with future episodes about.
Yay! So you wanted to end this on a happy note? Is that what that was?
We're not done yet, but we are going to move along, and we are going to talk about something just as happy, and that is that CGC is open and they are doing signings while everyone else is social distancing. So, how do we feel about CGC being an essential business? And just as a fan, I can tell you I'm not doing any of these signings, even though there are signatures that I would love to have on their schedule on both the CBCS and the CGC upcoming signings. And I'm not going to put money out there for that right now. It's just not important enough for me to extend the funds. I know Roger want to talk about Chris Claremont in particular. So
Yeah, well, it's not. Yeah, it's not as much the Claremont signing. So what they're doing for the Claremont signing, my understanding is they have a label that they're doing. So you guys know they do the new like picture labels where they have a picture of this whatever character on the label, right? You guys know.
Oh yeah, I mean, if I submit a book, like say I don't know what Spider-Man, whatever, yeah, I'll immediately pay what is it, like extra $5 for it? Yeah, because it's a guaranteed sell. I get like a good high grade on, let's say, like a Spidey 252, and it has that Spidey label. I mean, it's a guaranteed sell.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I do it. And as long as I have my weird things. Like I wouldn't put the Frank Miller Wolverine on a Hulk 181. That art doesn't like that. That would not mesh to me.
Nah.
So it has to somewhat mesh stylistically, but otherwise,
Sure.
yes, I'm with you. So what they're doing for this Claremont signing is they're making a label that is specifically the really iconic team shot from Giant Size X-Men #1.
Nice.
And they are only allowing it at that signing. So the only way you can get that label is to send a book in at that signing to have Chris Claremont sign it, and that label is automatically on all of these signings. So, I mean, a Chris Claremont signing's cool and all, but I mean, Chris Claremont's done a lot of signings. The thing that's really intriguing to me, and I will be submitting some books, both personal and for the store for this, but the thing that's really intriguing to me is to see how something like that, say 5-10 years down the line, I'm intrigued to see how that's going to return. If you're going to see, especially for ones like that were real limited to certain events, if you're going to see people paying a real premium for a book that happens to have this label, on the CGC case.
Oh yeah, it makes it all that much more special. I'm totally with you on that.
It will be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, I'd actually like from a fan perspective, what do you think? I mean, is that something where you could see yourself?
I honestly, I don't splurge for the labels, but when I send stuff to CGC, it's for my PC and it's not going anywhere.
Right.
So, I mean, if it's a book that I was going to flip, then I would probably spring for it if I thought that it would increase the sellability. But in general, I mean, the Claremont one sounds cool because it's limited, but again, it kind of, again, strikes a bad chord with me. The timing, I don't like the timing of this. I do not believe that it's a great time to have a business open that depends on having a bunch of plastic and cardboard go through the mail system to people from a bunch of random strangers and then have it be handled by a bunch of people who, have to go in and work as essential employees and then turn around and send more stuff back through the USPS or UPS or FedEx or whatever you're using. And then also the money issue again. I mean, CGC is definitely a luxury item. It's not an essential, like a comic to me is an essential item. It's an entertainment. It's something you read, and a CGC book is still entertainment to me, but it's a luxury. And so again, the whole thing just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And yeah, no, I mean, I think that the Claremont tag, if it's something, is it the splash page? Is that what you're talking about, or the cover? Okay, so it's the 2 Cyclops cover. See, I hate Cyclops, so I don't like that cover anyways. So I don't like it. I mean, who needs 2 Cyclops? Yeah, no, I remember. I've seen it before a few times. But no, yeah, for me, I mean, unless I was a huge X-Men fan, it's really doesn't increase the value of the book for me at all. I wouldn't pay a premium for that label personally. Yeah, well, that's
So would I.
fair.
And
All
I'm not
right,
even
guys.
an X-Men fan.
See, and like, I don't want to say I'm not an X-Men fan. I love Silver Marvel. To me, the X-Men, like, I want to say one to whenever they started reprinting, and like FF number 1 to 100, and Ditko Spider Man and Ditko Doctor Strange. I mean, that stuff is all so special to me that I would never want to say that, like, and then the beautiful thing about GSX is that it reboots X-Men and brings them back from the dead, essentially, like, just financially as a property. And so it's so important. I love GSX. It's a huge key book. I'm half joking, so don't, all you Cyclops fans, don't come after me. But yeah, again, for me, it's ink on a label. To me, what's important is the book. With any slab, like, just because it says that it's a 9.0, if the staple fell out from the case getting rattled around during shipping, that label's bad. The grade has no meaning, and that book is not. The book is what matters to me. So on that note, I think we're brushing up against the 41-minute mark, which is great, and I believe that we are about ready to end. So Roger, Eddie, thank you very much for your insight, and
Of
thank you to everyone
course.
who listened. And we will keep you updated going forward. If you guys want to say